Welcome to the presentation today. Like I said, we're going to be speaking about narcissistic abuse and the different types of narcissism, okay? So, a bit of background on myself. My name is Raquel Soteldo, and I've had the quote unquote pleasure of associating with narcissists throughout my life. So, I've had experiences that range from very early childhood to a few years ago. I also have worked with several types of people on a professional level who were diagnosed with psychopathy and narcissism and some sociopathy as well. Narcissists, of course. I have dated, unfortunately, some sociopaths in the past, not knowing that they were actually sociopaths, but then you become, you get to realize the situation after a while. I have a lot of immediate family members who are very narcissistic as well, high levels of trauma there. The feeling of being trauma bonded is definitely something that I'm familiar with, and I understand that inability to leave these type of relationships. I've worked with victims and perpetrators of sexual and physical abuse on children. I've also had very amazing clinical supervision who have extensive experience in the field of narcissism and psychology as well. My education ranges for about 20 years now in the cluster B personality disorders, as well as, bipolar, schizophrenia, and other developmental disorders like ADHD and autism. I've worked with autistic people who have autism disorder as well as attention deficit disorder for a while in the severe ranges. I'm currently finishing, give me one sec, my education. Just another participant came in, so we want to make sure she's okay or he's okay. Okay. So, currently finishing my education with a doctorate in counseling psychology, and I'm specializing in coercive reproduction by abusive intimate partners. Okay. The major link that I have found throughout my studies in the last 20 years is that narcissism is linked to developmental trauma in childhood. So, the inability developmentally to attach to people. Um, so it is very important to understand that narcissism may also be related to mental health disorders. So this is something that we're going to be talking about throughout this lecture, that narcissism itself is a personality, but it may be tied to mental health disorders, right? Like bipolar or schizophrenia. So that's a separate realm from the personality itself. So that's something that we're going to look into. Um, yeah, so we're going to see. So more will be explained as we go on. Okay, let's just move forward. So, recognizing narcissistic abuse. I'm trying to. Okay, yeah, I'll just put this right here. So James Baldwin actually was a psychologist, and he wrote about the ability of psychopaths saying that they don't actually have relationships; they actually just take hostages. So that's important, right? Because they're just not able to attach to people; they're just extensions of them. Somehow they're going to be useful. It's like my arm, right? So my arm is useful for something. That's the only reason why they have an arm per se, or why they are associating with somebody. Intimacy requires vulnerability. To be intimate, we risk exposing our deepest feelings, desires, and thoughts. This demands that we be self secure and confident, and it's no longer a space that's individual, but it's more, collective. So it's hard for some people to be in that space. According to the DSM 5, which is the Diagnostic Statistics Manual, somebody with NPD would meet the criteria of having a high sense of superiority, something superficial, and is quickly threatened. They're fantasizing all the time about power, beauty, brilliance, and idealized love. So they idealize people. Okay, so at first, that's why they love bomb, because of the idealization. They believe that their level of specialness is superior to others, and must be matched with a high end treatment, high end empathy, even towards them, high end interpretation of them. Everything has to be like high end, right? So the best of the best, supposedly. That's why when anything is said about them that is lower than the best, there's a shock to them because they don't understand that. Admiration is expected to be excessive, not minimal. Entitlement is exaggerated, definitely unhealthy. Exploitation is at the forefront. So they're the extension, they're exploiting you. You are an object, you are something to be used. The emotional empathy part is definitely missing, especially in social dynamics, in every dynamic, although they can build some relationships with parents and things like that, but very, very surface level. While they're envious of other people, at the same time, they believe other people envy them as well. And there's a high level of arrogance and haughtiness to them, okay? Now, to be diagnosed with this, obviously, it's important for somebody who's trained in the field to do that. Um, uh Only somebody who has a psychologist can actually diagnose somebody with NPD. It's important that we don't go around doing that just because it's such an intricate situation, intricate personality. It could be mixed with so many other things like bipolar, or it could be mixed with ADHD, or it could be mixed with autism, could be mixed with so many things, right? Like, or it could just not be narcissism at all. It could be like sociopathy or something, or psychopathy, like we don't know. So that's what we're going to talk about that here today, because it's important to note the difference. Okay. So some fiction about NPD would be like some, I guess, common things that people say, but that are not true. Would be that the narcissists are very vain and love themselves very much. It's not true at all. They don't love themselves. They're very high in shame, in personal shame. Another fiction is that being a narcissist means that you're very smart and that you look amazing and that you're very successful. Give me 1 second. Okay. Just sorry, more people keep coming in, so I have to make sure that they're in. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Maya. Appreciate your help. Um, okay. So another one is that only men can be narcissistic. That's another, false understanding of it. A lot of women are very narcissistic, right? Another one is that if someone calls you a narcissist, then you're probably one. Again, not really true. It could be the actual narcissist calling the other person a narcissist. And that's why it's important to be careful the words that we choose when we're treating other people. Okay. If all narcissists are evil with bad intentions, a lot of them are actually sad individuals who are very much filled with shame. Okay. They're very traumatized. They're very unable to attach to people. It's a very difficult situation for them, okay? So not all of them are evil per se. I think a psychopath may be a little bit more evil, or a sociopath. Like narcissists, they still sort of like have some type of emotion. Like even though it's like a very unempathetic and detached emotion, it's some type of emotion, and that's why so many people still attach them for such a long time, okay, and are under their control for such a long time because they can't fathom how somebody with like this tiny bit of emotion can also be like like somebody with bad intentions. Okay. Um, they're all sexually really good, supposedly, not the fact. Empathy can cure narcissism. No, they don't understand empathy, so it doesn't really register. They just use it against you. You can change a narcissist by telling that they are one. That does the reverse. I'm sure you guys have figured it out. It does the reverse. It just makes them use that information against you. They'll look up DSM-5 narcissism and be like, you're this, you're this, you're this, you're this. There is no actual like self-awareness in a narcissist, so it's important to understand that. They cannot feel emotions. That's not true. They do feel emotions, lots of anger. They feel lots of envy. They feel lots of betrayal, right? So they have a lot of emotions. It's just there a lot of them are negative. They do love their family members and want the best for them. Not necessarily. A lot of them actually want to hurt their family members. A lot of them are extremely mean. As long as they don't serve a purpose, they're nothing to them. It doesn't matter if they grew up, say, for example, you have a narcissist with a single parent who raised them, in poverty, and the child who's now a man, a narcissist, will say, they didn't give me the chance that I needed to make it in this world. So that's like it's really difficult for them to understand that somebody could be, in dire need to just brace you and make sure you survive, rather than, you know and giving you the option and the opportunity to live. They don't appreciate that. They don't understand that. They don't see that. So ultimately, can they love their family members? On a very surface level, just to see if they can do something for them, again, as an extension, right? So can you come to my daughter's baptism because I need to show people that you are my mother? Okay, no problem. So then that's the function of that person. Okay, if I'm speaking too fast, guys, just let me know. I just want to get through all the material, okay? Okay. And this will be sent to you, by the way, so you'll have a chance to ask any questions at all, and just, kind of review it and let me know if you have any questions after. Facts about narcissism. Narcissism is a pathological and debilitating personality disorder. Yes, it is. They really hate themselves. They really don't like themselves. It's a very depressive person, whoever's a narcissist, even though they're very charming and they don't show those emotions. They really are. It's not easy to be a narcissist at all. They lack self-esteem, have tons of shame, and zero identity, right? Like they're like a shell. So they gain their identity from the world. They learn the social cues. They understand what social people need from them, and that's what they imitate, and that's why they're called chameleons. Narcs are ashamed of themselves, very much so, because they cannot attach to people, so therefore they're ashamed. They know they're different. Narcs idealize people. They're delusional based on their level of self-importance. Yes. So if somebody meets you, they love bomb you. If a narcissist, they meet you, they love bomb you based on what they project onto you, based on their current manic, delusional, or delusion of grandeur. Okay. So based on that, they see you, they're like mirroring, you're like a mirror of them. And then they idealize you. Once they realize that you're not them and it breaks, that's where they devalue you. And they're like, oh, shoot, you're just a regular person. Like, I'm just a regular person, right? So I'm wrong about everything. This is wrong. You're this, that. And then their shame comes up. And then their hate and self-hate comes up. That's where they start devaluing you. And then afterwards, just discard. Then to just go back to the idealizing cycle, because it feels good. So why not feel good, right? Like that's just, even their coping mechanism is that. Narcissism is a coping mechanism, like I was saying. Narcissists are excellent at projecting, incredibly excellent at that, actually. Anything they say is probably what they feel about themselves. Anything they say to you is because that's how they feel about themselves, okay? They're the sadistic narcissists. They like to inflict pain and have zero remorse. That's when they like to see you cry. They like to see you cry a lot. That's mainly when they have like psychopathy. So there's narcissism, there's sociopathy, and then there's psychopathy, right? If you have narcissism, you don't necessarily have sociopathy or psychopathy. But if you have sociopathy, then you definitely have narcissism. You may not have psychopathy. If you have psychopathy, you definitely have antisocial personality disorder and NPD. Okay, so that's how it goes. Narcs could identify their narcissism but glorify it rather than see it as a weakness. They think that they can protect themselves from the world and that they don't owe anybody anything, right? So that's, for them, it's a coping mechanism. It's a defense mechanism to make sure they protect their shame, right? They have to protect that. Everything a narc does is an idealization. Give me one second again. An idealization of the reality that they wish to experience. Right? Once reality hits them, they go into victim or revenge mode, which is what we were just talking about right now. It begins in childhood. A person cannot change who they actually are. They can only hide it. Okay? So it'll come up. It may take 20 years, but it is definitely going to come up. The narc's level of self-esteem is highly fragile. A look, a word, a tone, anything can break their self-esteem, because at the surface is where they're like, I'm very good, I have high levels of self-esteem. But right after the surface, that layer, like, and all the layers after that to the deep in the soul, they know that they're not. So if somebody can see through that little bit of surface, that means that they made a mistake in showing who they actually are, and they've been found. Basically, the mask has been seen without them dropping it on purpose. That takes away the control from them, and that really upsets them. Okay. Um, yeah, so definitely they see vulnerability in others as a weakness for sure, right? It's an entry point for them. It's not, I feel bad, so therefore I'm going to help you and I'm a good person because I'm trying to help you. No, right? Like they're going to bite you because you're quote unquote a good person and you're feeling bad, and therefore they're going to eat you. That's their opportunity. So what I say to all my clients is, if you feel bad at any point, you feel bad, so therefore you're being asked to act. So feeling bad is like the precedent to some type of action. Stop. 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 Okay? You're going to feel worse afterwards. You already started by feeling bad. The feeling is going to get worse. Don't do that. You should feel good when you're doing something. And don't feel bad for people, because that's going to be used against you. That's a double-edged sword. That's your empathy. Extreme empathy can actually work against you. So we got to be careful with that as well. When a narcissist is in a non-threatening environment, the narcissist can be pretty enjoyable for sure. If somebody can, believe their mask is on and they don't see through it, yep, for sure. They're having a good time. They're normal social beings, right? So they're normal humans, except without certain emotions. So they can experience other sides. Plus, remember, they learned, right, through social interactions, that if they laugh, people laugh with them. If they say something funny, people laugh. They like it. They're attracted to that. They've learned how to be social chameleons. So they're excellent in the social realms because that's the only thing they've actually had to learn in life. We're people who don't have NPD are kind of born with it. We kind of read social cues because we have feelings and it's more intricate the experience as a human. But with somebody who has NPD, it's very like one level, like very surface, like, oh, you like that? Okay, I'm gonna do that because if you like that, then I can use you. Basically, I can get to you, right? So I'm gonna learn how to do that. Okay. There is definitely no more compass for a narcissist for sure. They can learn the rules of morality and maybe exercise them based on need. So if they have a good wife, let's just say, or a good husband who benefits them, they're gonna pretend like they have a good moral compass because they've memorized the moral compass. Don't cheat, don't drink, don't do this, right? So they learn that. So they're like, okay, I'm gonna accommodate it to do that, but it's only gonna last a certain amount of time. It's not gonna be long. Okay, it's gonna be long. It's not gonna be long before the mask falls. Basically, is what I'm saying. When a narcissist hurts someone, it's for a reason, and their mind is justified for sure, right? So, uh, if you didn't work out for them, it doesn't matter how you feel. They don't care. They don't feel it. They don't feel it. They don't feel bad like you feel bad, for example. Okay? Unconditional love is impossible for a narcissist 100%. Okay, let's go with sociopathy. I think like this part is really interesting, like the combination of sociopathy and psychopathy, because in relation to narcissism, because a lot of people think that they're dealing with a narcissist, but really they're dealing with a lot more than that. So that's important to understand. Okay. So first of all, NPD and APD, antisocial personality disorder, share some similarities in terms of their symptoms and characteristics. So learning about the disorders can offer an understanding of how these personality disorders manifest in individuals that we are intimately related to. Okay, that's important. Secondly, people with these disorders are more likely to engage in harmful and criminal behaviors like manipulation, lying, and aggression. Manipulation. Oh, he's very manipulative. We say it like it's not that big of a deal. It's a huge deal to be with someone who manipulates you. It's a big deal. They're trying to take away your identity and trying to guide you away from what you want. That is not healthy. Okay? One second. So we want to be aware of that, okay? Lying, definitely somebody who is lying, it's not part of something that we want to be, together with, right? So that we need to be careful of. And aggression, another, oh, he's a little bit aggressive sometimes. No, that's not okay at all. So it seems like we've kind of become desensitized to these three particulars: manipulation, lying, and aggression. And we've said that, well, it happens, it happens sometimes. No, it should not be happening, okay? So let's understand sociopathy a little bit. Pervasive pattern of poor social conformity, antisocial, deceitfulness, impulsivity, criminality, and lack of remorse. Okay? So you guys figure out if that's something that's happening around you or with the person that you're intimately connected to. Any one of these things, okay? If you have three or more of these, the ones that I'm about to talk about, then you can be diagnosed. Three minimum, three only. Okay? Manipulation. Often uses manipulation to influence others. So no, we should go to this mall. No, because if you go to this mall, like lots of talking, excessive talking, or excessive talking to keep you on the line. Lots of talking, that's a form of manipulation. We got to figure out like the implied manipulation too. It's not just you have to do this, otherwise I'm going to do this, ultimatums. No. It's more it's more about subtle ways of manipulating that at the end always get them their way and not yours, right? It should be 50-50. We should be compensating here. Like we should be together compromising, sorry. Okay, this is not like an only you show. This is an everybody show together in this partnership, okay? So they may use charm, like, oh, you're so beautiful, flatter, you're so good at that, and try to please you and do favors for you, like, how are you doing today? Is everything good? To manipulate you and to get their way. The ultimate result, the culminating factor, is what we need to look at the end of all these actions. What happened at the end of it? Was my word respected, heard? Was their word the one ultimately being applied? Okay. Deceitful patterns like fraud or lack of honesty are part of their personality. They present the self in a different aspect until the goal is achieved and then switch back to that original persona. So they fabricate information about the events and embellish them. Sounds very much like the love bomb to the devalue part, right? Or the discard, because they can go, antisocial personality can go straight from love bombing to discarding. Callous. They have zero concern about people's feelings. They don't care. They may pretend to care, but they don't care. The pretend to care is the manipulation part. Of course I care. Of course. No. Right? So we got to be careful with that. Or they may just really be bringing you off the hook and be like, how are you? How's everything going? The next day, how's everything going? How are you? The next week, oh, how are you? How's everything going? When this person never even talked to you. What do they want? Right? That's the manipulation that we're talking about. No guilt, no remorse. They don't care. They may cry. Actually, they cry, but it doesn't mean they care. Do not believe the tears, okay? No recognition of the harm done, no acknowledgement, sadist style of treating people, like, oh, this person is a pig, or look at that person, or look at that person, how dare they do this and do that, like it's their business. It has zero to do with them, but then yet they have some type of judgment about it. Yeah, we don't want that type of antisocial or antagonistic style of people around us, okay? And aggressive. They may come in your face. They may like go like this, or they may just yell. They may throw tantrums, big emotional tantrums. That's a big one too with them. They have hostility, lots of hostility, very angry, okay, all the time, insulting other people, nasty, mean, belittling, vengeful, right? And this combines a lot with the whole like mental health disorder at the same time, okay? So like bipolar, schizophrenia as well. So it just merges, it merges. They're irresponsible, so they don't follow through with their or with their responsibilities or appointments or requests. They lack any ability to respect the promises that they made or financial obligations. So that's a good one. They're impulsive. They respond to immediate stimuli from the moment to moment basis. And they act impulsively. They cannot establish or follow plans. So that's important to take note of. They also engage in risk taking behaviors like, I don't know, any thoughtlessness that may come up in initiating activities. They may go out really quickly. They may, sometimes it seems like they have ADHD because they're so hyperactive. Um, but they could also be going through manic episode, right? Or they could just be antisocial and just really hyper about their need to be antisocial, right? They're in denial of reality regarding personal danger. So that's something. So three only out of these gives us an antisocial personality. Okay, that's important to take note. Okay, so the overlap between sociopathy and narcissism. So, some of the key overlapping traits between the two disorders include manipulative behavior. Both disorders involve a strong tendency to manipulate and exploit. Oh my God, sorry. For personal gain or gratification, lack of empathy. Both disorders involve this lack of empathy and concern for other people, and often callousness or indifference towards other people's feelings. They just don't care. They may pretend they care, but they don't actually care. Grandiosity, both of them think they're all that and a bag of chips. Their level of self importance is so high that anything you say is taken out of context, is taken wrong. They deserve everything when they have done zero. Okay, they don't have any sort of contribution towards society or the world, but yet they deserve it all. Okay. And they have the superficial form charm. So that's important to know. They're very charmful. They have lots of friends. They're very good at talking to people. They're very good at like just people think they're amazing. You know, they're very good at that. Some people have realized the truth, but some people haven't. Another different key differences are that the narcissist is created through the trauma. A sociopath is born that way, actually, through the amygdala. There's an issue in the amygdala. Um, the narc does feel while a sociopath does not feel. So a narcissist may feel shame. Antisocial don't feel any shame at all, actually. The sociopath will not react at all unless it serves a purpose. So unless it's gonna get them out of jail, they're not gonna be crying or sobbing or anything like that. Okay. If it's gonna get them some money, yeah, they will. They will definitely pretend, but they still callous. They still don't care. Okay. The sociopath doesn't have a conscience. The sociopath will not have any emotions at all. The narcissist maybe will yell, will get aggressive. The sociopath, not so much, unless it's violent. It's like aggressive. Okay. But again, it depends on the three criteria that we talked about earlier. Okay. Um, the sociopath will be more calculated. Okay. And they won't want to be seen by others being in this out of control state. Okay. The narcissist doesn't care. They'll just make a show. Doesn't matter. They don't care. Okay. Psychopathy and narcissism. Okay. So the DSM-5 criteria for psychopathy is a pervasive pattern of disregard for and violation of rights of others since the age of 15. It could be under that though. Usually, kids who are showing signs of psychopathy. They'll have like oppositional defiance disorder. They'll have some traits of autism, some traits of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Um, but the conduct disorder is a big one, especially in childhood. Okay. And it begins like as early as kindergarten, right? So, they're already biting kids, they're already doing all these things that are just antisocial. So they maybe start as antisocial, go into psychopathy later. They grow into it, or at least it can be diagnosed then because the brain is fully formed by that time. So again, failure to conform to social norms, right? Repeatedly performing acts that are grounds for arrest. As kids, they may be bullies. As teenagers, they may be sexually assaulting people. As grown-ups, they're already, you know, potentially killing people. But it doesn't have to be that much, right? Like a psychopath, not all psychopaths kill. That's the big difference. Some of them are just really callous when it comes to people in general. They just want to take advantage, steal. They like money, or they like fame, or they don't oftentimes have to be killing people, okay? So that's important to note. They're always deceiving, right? They're using lying as a personality front for profit or for pleasure. They're impulsive and they fail to plan ahead. They're irritable and aggressive for sure, just like the sociopaths. They're reckless, um, in this regard, the safety of others, exactly like the sociopaths as well. Consistent irresponsibility, repeated failure to sustain consistent work behavior, although sometimes they're really good at their work and they need to keep up that front so that they have their other life on the side where they can do their like psychopathic things, I guess. You would call it. They have lack of remorse for sure. They do feel different from the rest of the world, but they don't care. They don't care that they're different. So again, like to be diagnosed, you have to be 18 years old. But again, there's got to be conduct disorder before the age of 15. The occurrence of antisocial behavior is not exclusive during the course of schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. So it could happen during a schizophrenic episode or a bipolar episode where someone could be psychopathic. So outside of those episodes, are they still being any of these pervasive patterns? Then they are psychopath, right? It matches that of the sociopath and a narcissist. In terms of the narcissist, it matches because they both have a high sense of superiority and use superficial charm. They have fantasies of being the best, delusions of grandeur. They feel that they're super special. They have a high need for admiration, a high sense of entitlement, no empathy, exploit other people. They're very envious and very arrogant. Again, with the delusions of grandeur. Okay. So, characteristics of narcissistic abuse. So, if you're experiencing any of these, there's tons of this information online, of course. So I thought I would bring it up so that we can kind of go through it, okay? In case you didn't hear of it yet. But gaslighting, right? Gaslighting is the number one problem because it really drives you insane to think that you are insane, right? It makes you doubt yourself to the point where you don't know if you're right or wrong, if who you are. Someone that you've already known for however many years you are does not know who you are because of this person telling you that you're something else. That's big deal when your identity crisis happens because of abuse or because of the words of somebody else, right? Isolation, they tend to isolate you a lot so that way they can abuse you, because if you have support, other people are going to say, well, what are you doing with this person, right? Like, why? Right? They're going to be doubting that, so they need to isolate you in order for you to be at your most vulnerable state. Obviously, manipulation, like we talked about, projection is a big one. You're very selfish and you're very always thinking about yourself, and it's all about them, right? Big projection right there. Triangulation, they'll use a third party to compare themselves or to compare you and to let you know that you're not good enough. Okay. And then they devalue you and tell you that you're not good enough. Basically, all of this are devaluation tactics, but they'll actually start calling you names, calling you out of your name. So the narcissist will be full of ideas. They're very callous. They know your weaknesses. They'll study your emotions and mimic them. Right? Remember what we talked about before? That's their best technique. Like the most sharpened technique that they have is to learn what other people do and say and feel, so that they can imitate it, so that they can eat you alive afterwards. Okay, literally they'll imitate you the entire time. This is all an imitation game. um but they can't really get in your head that much, right? They can only learn from the surface or from whatever it is that you show them. So because of that, um they're projecting. They'll use the projection aspect of things. So they'll project to see if it actually one of them hits on the dot, right? Like, oh, you're a very selfish person. And if the other person believes it and says, if they believe that they are selfish and says, you know what, yeah, or how dare you say that, but then be like, yeah, no, that's actually kind of true, that the narcissist will understand, oh, you see, so they think they're selfish, I'm gonna use that against them now. So they're just trying to throw things at you to see which one hits. Okay, it's like fishing. um the narc needs you though as a supply, right? Like to fulfill their feeling need, their need to feel anything, they need other people. So they'll come out and feed off you, your energy, because otherwise they're just shells, they have nothing. So that's important to understand, that they're just coming to use you. Doesn't matter in which way or form. Could be to get you angry, could be to get you laughing, it could be to get you sexing, it could be to anything to get you going, so that you are giving them energy so that they can feel alive. Like they need to feel alive. Okay, they're very, very empty souls, unfortunately. um yeah, they'll need you for praise as well, for victimization if they're like very sadistic, and for admiration. They need to be told. So even if that means that they're gonna, how do I put this, they are going to make some type of argument where you're wrong so that they can be right. If you react to them that you're getting upset about something, they won and they are now right. Because look, you are out of control. I just won an argument, so I am better than you. Therefore, I should be admired. I just got a little sense of self esteem as a narcissist. That's why the no contact or the gray rock method is the best method to use, because it doesn't continue to feed their ego. And their ego is quite shallow, actually. The narc feels way too much rejection. That's the problem. And they're looking for ways to avoid these feelings. Okay, so the only person that can help them is you. All right. Presentations of narcissistic abuse. So they come in many different forms. They could come in the workplace. They could come through friends. They could come from parents. They can come from family members, or they can come from intimate partners. Okay. There is all types of different types of abuse happening all over, but most of them will do it when you have like an actual emotional attachment to them. Okay. Because like I said, narcissists are very charmful, right? So they're very nice, they're very like outgoing with people. They're not trying to like abuse others, because you're not, other people that are strangers to them are not an extension of them. If they're going to attach to you, since they learned early on that they cannot attach, they didn't even learn how to attach very early on in their life. They don't know how to attach. So their only way of attaching is to have you as an extension of them. Okay. So if you're an extension of them, they can abuse you, they can use you, they can, manipulate you, they can, right? But if you're just a stranger, there's no need for me to be manipulating you, and like there's not even a time for me to do that, right? Like there's no chance. So I'm only gonna do it with people who are closest to me, my kids, my parents, right? My If I'm the boss at somewhere, things like that. That's where they get to be as abusive as they can be. Yes, absolutely. We're definitely sorry. I'm just reading some of the comments, but yeah, thank you so much, everybody. And yeah, we're recording this, and I'm definitely gonna be sending it over. Okay. Thanks. Okay. So emotional contagion. Okay, this is a big one. The physical manifestation of an emotion, otherwise called emotional contagion. Think of if I'm sick and you come near me, there's going to be like an infection, right? Like you're going to get infected with mine. It's contagion in the Latin word or whatever. Same thing with emotions, okay? This is where a person, a narcissist, appears to catch other people's emotions, okay? One key example is when, for example, a baby starts crying, the other babies start crying. Even in the animals, a dog starts barking, the other dog is going to bark, right? Another one is where there's a group of teenagers and they begin to scream or jump joyfully. The majority of them will start doing it. It's a normal human nature thing, right? Emotional contagion is the phenomenon, though, where an emotional and like emotions are influenced by emotions of other people. In this case, with a narcissist, because they need your emotions, they need to feed off your emotions. Okay, they're gonna create emotions in you. But the only way they can do that through this emotional contagion like analysis is that they have to have that emotion first so that they can infect you with it. Their only emotion is negative. Their only emotion is going to be anger, shame, sadness, right? That's it. That's it. That's all they got. Frustration. So you're going to also become like that. You're also going to become like them. Even though you're fighting to be in peace, to be happy, to be nice, to be kind, gosh, right? They want to infect you with their emotions. Okay. So it happens either consciously or unconsciously. It can occur in verbal or non-verbal. That's why they have these big tantrums like, oh my God, why did you do this? Right? Like, calm down. We could just have a like conversation. It doesn't have to go on for 2 hours. Like, what is this? But that's because they need to infect you with that, right? And if you're putting up your boundary and you're like really locked in into what you want to be happening and not what they not letting them guide you, they keep going. They keep going. That's why when we go, no contact. I'm done with this conversation. Just like that. Okay. Some ways in ways people can be affected by the emotional contagion of narcissists. Negative emotions, like we were talking about, being very critical, belittling them, engaging in behaviors that are insults and put downs. This can cause those around them to feel negative emotions. Insecurity. The narcissists tend to have an inflated sense of self importance and may prioritize their own needs and desires over others. This may make those around them feel invalidated, unimportant, and unappreciated, leading to feelings of insecurity and self doubt. However, really and truly, remember the sense of self importance that the narcissist has is a mask. So, what you're feeling is actually their real feelings of insecurity. So, you're being infected with the real feeling of shame that this narcissist has. Okay? Everything that has to do with any sort of type of real sense of self awareness or self esteem in a narcissist is fake. Okay, confusion. Narcissists love to confuse people. You love me, you don't love me. You love me, you don't love me. Da, 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 da. Causes, again, just the main negative emotions, as always, I'm talking about frustration, anger, sadness. All the time. You're basically experiencing those emotions on a regular cycle basis. Yes or no, right? And validation. Narcissists, they love to be validated. They love to be like, you're right, you're right. So they'll use any sort of behavior. Crying, pity party, loudness, yeah, aggression, just to hear you're right. Okay. So one study by Bruno Foster and Campbell 2010 showed that narcissists were less likely to catch negative emotions from others, such as sadness or fear, but they were more likely to catch positive emotions. right? That's why they're so good in social groups too, because they're catching on to like the laughter, and they can mimic that really well. Okay. But when it comes to the negative emotions, it's hard for them to show them because then they get out of control because it's so real for them. So we want to be pretty aware of that. Actually, they're feeling negative emotions very much so. They feel it very much so. Okay. And they can't help themselves. They don't have coping mechanisms to help themselves, heal through these negative emotions like we do. For example, we're like, okay, breathe, calm down, everything is okay, everything's gonna be all right. Yeah, no. If a narcissist learned how to do that, that's great and all, but then they'll start internalizing. I'm a really bad person. I'm like really shitty person. I have a lot of shame. I suck. I really suck. They won't tell you because then the coping mechanism is like, but I'm amazing at what I do. I'm very good. That's their like coping layers. Very good. And then they'll need to feed off that. Even just doing that myself right now gave me like goosebumps. So imagine how they feel about right, like this whole like grandiose thing. It's ridiculous, but that's what it is. Okay, so it's a very complex phenomenon. When it comes to relationships, I thought I would mention this is really key because it really does keep us enforced in these abusive relationships, and it's called intermittent reinforcement. Okay, it's brought up by the Pavlovian whole experiment, operant conditioning, and all that. Really, really interesting stuff. You should definitely look it up if you can. It's basically where a desired behavior is rewarded irregularly or inconsistently. Okay. So it's not given every time they have the desire for that. The reward is not given every time the behavior is done. Okay. It's unpredictable. It's on random basis. So, okay, I'll explain it a little bit later. Intermittent reinforcement, often associated with operant conditioning, a process where behavior is strengthened or weakened based on the following of rewards or punishments. Okay. Intermittent reinforcement can be an effective way to reinforce behavior because it can create an unpredictable environment where the individual receiving the reinforcement is not sure when they will receive the reward. This creates a constant state of anticipation, can lead to strong and persistent behaviors like addiction. Addiction, quote unquote, addiction to our partners or whoever is not giving us the reward for the behavior that we are expecting. So we're just like these little animals. We're also getting reinforced, okay? Our behavior is also getting reinforced, just like animals, just like everything in this world that gets reinforced through reward or punishment, okay? B.F. Skinner studied the effects of reinforcement, intermittent reinforcement on rat behavior. In this experiment, the rats were placed in a box with a lever that would dispense food when pressed. I would definitely suggest looking this up on YouTube. They have it. Initially, the rats learned that pressing the lever would consistently result in food being dispensed every time. However, Skinner then changed the reinforcement schedule so that the lever would dispense the food intermittently, and the rats were forced to press the lever many times before receiving any food. Despite this irregular reinforcement, the rats continued to press the lever persistently and compulsively, even when it was clear that no food was coming out. Okay? So intermittent reinforcement proved to be a powerful motivator that can cause individuals to persist in behaviors even when they're not immediately rewarded. This can have complications for a variety of human behaviors, including addictions, gambling, and compulsive behavior. So this actually, that experiment was really interesting because the rat that didn't get the food when it was supposed to because it pressed a light or something and it was supposed to get food, like when we give love but we don't get the love back, or when we give respect but we don't get the respect back, or when we do things for them because we feel bad but they don't give us nothing back, we're like, oh my god, right? Like, what is going on here? Why am I here? What is this? That's actually the trauma bond that's creating that addiction. That's what's creating that addiction. That is exactly what is creating that addiction. That's why we cannot act. The act cannot continue to happen. We need to gray rock it so that way we're not continuously reinforced. Don't feel bad anymore. Stop doing for them. Start just being self and actually do for self, and see how you can maybe become more compulsive about serving self rather than serving the other, because the addiction is being formed. So I thought that was really important to point out here. Okay, so in a narcissistic relationship, let's just go with it. Love and attention. Narcissists often use intermittent reinforcement to keep their victims hooked by showing love and attention in unpredictable and irregular ways. Okay, for example, they may shower their partner with affection one day only to completely withdraw and ignore them the next. Right. The inconsistency of the narcissist's behavior keeps the victim in a constant state of uncertainty. Oh, maybe if I answer the phone this time, he'll be nice. Or maybe if I don't, like, he's texting me like crazy. So I should really answer, because if I don't answer, there may be a problem. Something is gonna happen. He may not talk to me. He may not give me this, what I need, which is that text message, which is nothing. Okay? Really, because that's where the breadcrumbs come in, right? Because they don't give you really nothing. They don't actually give you anything, or at least they take it away really fast. But ultimately, they don't give you anything. Nothing of real sus, like real good stuff. Like, they don't give you that. Withdrawal and punishment. A narcissist may also use intermittent reinforcement by withdrawing or withholding love and attention or other forms of reward as a punishment for the bad behavior on the part of the victim. Okay. For example, a narcissistic boss might give an employee a raise 1 year only to withhold bonuses and promotions for the next year with no reason at all. Yep, that happens. This unpredictability can also keep the victim in a state of uncertainty and may cause them to question their own worth and effectiveness. 100%. 100%. I'm going to give you the silent treatment for 3 weeks. You're not getting anything from me. After that, I may mow the lawn. That's another example, right? Again, it's not even for you. It's to maintain the house. But that's the way I'm going to give you, because I got to breadcrumb you, because I'm too good. So I'm going to do very little because I'm too good. And I'm going to imply that you're not that good. And if you believe it, that's on you. That's the problem, right? Flattery and manipulation. Narcissists can use intermittent reinforcement through flattery and manipulation. For example, a narcissist friend might give compliments or positive reinforcement only when they want something from the victim. Right? Such as a favor or a validation. Oh my God, you look so pretty too. You look so great. By offering compliments or praise unpredictably, narcissists can keep victims hooked on their validation and seeking for more. Oh my goodness. This reminds me so much of this new generation, right? I don't know. I'm sorry, guys. I'm like, what do they call it? Millennial? Like, I'm 41. But, my daughter's generation she's 19, right? 18. I love them. God bless them all. All good to them from the universe. All good. But this whole idea of giving, compliments for free, like, oh my God, you look so pretty today. It's really, if you think about it, oh my God, your hair is so good. To complete strangers in the mall, right? Complete strangers. They'll go around. Oh my God, you're so beautiful. Oh my God, your skirt's so nice. Oh my God, yeah. Because they need it back. They need it back. It's this like whole like huge, development of narcissism that is happening in this new generation, unfortunately. So, oh, but you too, you're so pretty. Yeah, you're so cute. Oh yeah, I also like your hair. Because they need to be validated. They're looking for that supply. And I'm sorry if I offended any of the kids. If there's any kids here, I'm so sorry about that. So send me an email after and yell at me, okay? Narcissists use intermittent reinforcement as a way to manipulate and control their victims by creating unpredictable situations in which the victim will feel confused and uncertain. They can keep the victim invested in the relationship while retaining their own power and control. It is important for individuals to recognize that these tactics and definitely take the steps to set boundaries, okay? Or seek mental health help. Another one is the return on the investment. Talking about investment, if you invest all your emotions on them, all your money on them, all your energy on them, you're investing in a relationship. Naturally, you're going to want your return on your investment. But because you're not getting it, you're getting very little through this intermittent reinforcement, you feel like you need to stay in this investment. You don't. You do not have to stay in this investment. You can withdraw, take your losses, and go. Okay. The impact on individuals and victims, okay? Emotional distress. Give me 1 second. There's emotional distress for sure, emotional ups and downs all the time, all the negative feelings, all the negative frustrations, and the diminished sense of self-worth. Self-esteem is definitely takes a hit. Cognitive dissonance, conflicting feelings of arising from the abuser's manipulation and not knowing what the reality is, if it's true or if it's not true. Internal conflict, am I right, am I not right? My parents say I'm right, am I right? He's telling me I'm not. What's going on? Post-traumatic stress, even to the point of getting a disorder in a complex way. That's important to recognize. Flashbacks, inability to sleep, addictions, um, anxiety, high levels of anxiety, depression, inability to meet with other people's, inability to date other people because of this. Isolation and dependency, very common, and physical concerns happen a lot. Okay, a lot of physical ailments because of this type of abuse. The different types of narcissists, I'm sure you guys already know this. Malignant narcissists, grandiose, vulnerable, cerebral, and somatic narcissists. Okay, now these type of narcissists, like the types, I don't necessarily think it matters that much. There's a spectrum, right? Like, you are a narcissist, you treat me this way, lacks empathy, and it's affecting me. What you are and where on the spectrum you are, I don't really care. Like, it doesn't really matter to me. You're already affecting me. But because a lot of us need to educate ourselves and understand and become aware of who they are, so then we can be like, for real, this is abuse. This is why I put this on the screen, okay? We've talked about this already. Idealization, devaluation, and discard and hoovering phase. That's very important. The manipulation tactics, as we've already seen. Love bombing, hoovering, which is when they come back after they've already discarded you because they need that high again from the love bomb. They need to idealize something like we talked about earlier. That's important to them. The silent treatment. They'll use the silent treatment to disempower you, disarm you. Okay, that's important for them so that you can be vulnerable, so they can eat you. Literally, literally. Okay, identifying this can be very important to protecting yourself. Any pattern of devaluation, if they're saying to you like you're not good enough, or why do you do that, why do you do that, you always do this, no, we don't want to be devalued. We're like, no, I'm not saying that to you, please stop, right? We have to put our boundaries. If they lack empathy, if everything is about them, not about both of us together, right? They don't remember to ask you, how are you? That's a big one. Okay, excessive self-importance, they're too much for this world. Okay, that's a red flag. They always need to be validated, they always need to be told how good they are. That's another red flag, right? So these are important to recognize, and we need to put our boundaries. Now, when we put our boundaries, it doesn't mean that they're not going to respect our boundaries. The sure sign that somebody's a narcissist is when you give them a boundary but they don't respect that. That's how you know you're dealing with a serious narcissist. But somebody who's like at the lower part of the spectrum, who just has narcissistic traits, they may be able to recognize some of the boundaries and respect them, actually. So you may want to put the boundary down and maybe see what happens with that boundary. Did you have to enforce it a couple of times? What happened with that boundary? Did you have to say it again? Okay, no problem. How many times? If it's more than once or twice in terms of the enforcement, you already know this is not a person that's respecting your boundaries. Definitely going to be a bit narcissistic, okay? If they have a difficulty with criticism, that's a big deal, right? Like, because always need feedback. We need feedback. How are you experiencing me? How am I experiencing you? I need to know so that I can, kind of change things up a little bit. If it's too loud, if it's too fast, like, what's going on? How are you experiencing me? Okay, I need to know that. So if you feel criticized because of something that we're both sort of trying to, obviously the communication aspect is very important. I need to know how to communicate it in a kind, compassionate way, of course, without using the word you, right? I feel that's good. Then okay, no problem. But we need to be careful in terms of like, is somebody like taking like a little bit of um what's it called? Not feedback, basically. If they're taking the feedback as criticism, as something against them, just a little tiny red flag, because then we know for sure there's going to be zero compromise, okay, in the future, right? Because partnership requires compromising, unfortunately, right? Otherwise, how are you going to make it? um Intense charming followed by devaluation. Ooh, that's a good one, right? They switch really quickly. Oh my god, you're so beautiful in front of people, you're so nice, and then you get in the car and they're like, oh, so tired of being here with you. Like, I need to go home, right? Like, immediately. That happens a lot. So that's like a bit of a malignant narcissist. Unpredictable mood swings and very controlling behavior. That's another, couple of red flags here. Okay. The psychological and emotional impact of narcissism. So basically, on the victim will start experiencing low self esteem because of the, how are you going to esteem self if self is unknown because of the insecurity? Do I really know self? Am I really smart? Is that really true? Because they're telling me I'm not. And if I'm doubting myself, there's already a split. There's already a disconnect with self esteem. If you think of self as a separate entity to your body, think of self as like over here, right? Self needs to be fed. Self is the ego. Self needs to be fed. It needs to know that you're available for it. But we, in narcissistic relationships, have decided to let it go and focus on that. We're attaching to that, external to us. So we're attaching to that. Self gets deprivation, starts really lacking energy, nurture, vitamins, which is like validation, respect, affirmations, good words, right? The ego. Okay, it really needs us to be on point. We start getting what? Depression, anxiety, all these things. Anxiety and hypervigilance, depression, guilt and shame, and emotional flashbacks. Because the self is mad at us. It haunts us. It says, how dare you take care of something external to you when I'm right here? So when you're feeling any of these emotions, it's because it's time to take care of self. Okay? Again, PTSD is a big one, unfortunately. Emotional reactivity is part of the PTSD as well. Difficulty trusting other people, fear of rejection because we're being rejected so much by this person who supposedly loves us, because they are intermittently reinforcing that. We've become confused. We're confused. We don't know what's going on, right? So the reason why we're in these, continue to be in these relationships is because we're having difficulties setting boundaries. Okay, we need to be able to say no as a complete sentence. Please don't do that. I don't appreciate that. That's not something I like. Please stop. But again, we need to be really in control of self. We need to be really strong relationship with self to know what we, how to protect ourselves, okay? And what we don't like and what we like. Okay? We don't want anything changing our self-concept, but if we drop our boundary, anything can change our self-concept. Anybody could change it, right? Anybody in the external world could change it. And there's some mean people out there, unfortunately. So therapy can help, and this is our last slide. I think, like, anybody who's experiencing narcissistic abuse should definitely go with a therapist. Okay, absolutely, so that they can seek some validation, because they're they're getting so dried of validation. We all need validation. It's okay to receive some type of validation, like you're good, you're okay, you're nice, you're a good person, you're lovable. Okay, that's where the affirmations come into the self, but not excessive need for admiration. Okay. A therapist can help you build your self-esteem, can help you address the trauma and identify and change some of those negative beliefs that this narcissist has created in the self, right? You're bad, you're ugly, you're not worth it, you're not good enough, you don't deserve me, you don't deserve anything, blah, blah, blah. All those negative thoughts need to be reframed. And the only way to do that is through CBT, okay? Helping you set boundaries, very important. You have somebody else that sees them from a non-emotional perspective what's actually happening. Doesn't mean that you need to leave your relationship. It just means that you need to just put your boundaries so that you can protect the relationship you have with self. Because remember, if we dry up self, anxiety, depression, all these different type of things start hunting us, right? Once you start experiencing those, like I said before, it's because you need to rebuild your relationship with self, okay? And developing healthy relationships so that we can avoid the isolation aspect and we're not vulnerable. Okay. And that's it, everybody. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. The next session is going to be next week, Friday at 6 p.m. We're going to have another hour long. So that the way it's going to go is we're going to have the next one and then 3 more after that. So 5 in total. And then after that, we're going to have 2 where we're going to have an hour long and we're just going to talk together. Whoever wants to talk, you don't have to talk. You can talk if you want to. You can share your experience. You don't have to, but you can. Okay. It's going to be like a support group type of thing. Okay. If you have any questions, please email me info@soteldotherapy.com. And I hope everybody has a great day. Okay. Thank you so much.